You ever wonder why someone who seemed so distant, so unreachable, suddenly comes back into your life? Like they vanished, left you questioning everything, your worth, your value, what you did wrong, and then, out of nowhere, they reappear. What is it that pulls them back? What changes inside them? Here's the truth. It's never about you being less than enough. It's about what's happening inside them. Avoidance isn't about avoiding you. It's about avoiding the overwhelming fear, the vulnerability that terrifies them. They run because emotions feel like a wildfire, burning so hot they don't know how to handle it. They leave because they don't want to be seen breaking, falling apart, or exposing those cracked parts of themselves. But here's the powerful thing. When they come back, it's not because the fear disappeared. It's because something inside them shifted. Maybe they faced their own shadows. Maybe they realized running away doesn't fix the emptiness. Maybe they got tired of being alone in their own head. You don't get to control if or when they return. But what you can control is how you show up when they do. Not as someone desperate for answers or needing closure, but as someone who has been standing tall in their own power, loving themselves fiercely through the weight. Because when you do that, you're no longer chasing a version of them that ran away. You're inviting the real person back, the one ready to meet you where you are. This isn't about begging for a second chance. It's about understanding the complexity of human hearts, how fear can imprison even the strongest souls, and how courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it quietly creeps back when the time is right. So if they come back, see it for what it really is, a sign of their growth, not your validation. And if they don't, it's your soul's way of saying your story doesn't depend on them. Stand firm in your own worth. You are whole. You are enough. And the love you deserve? It's already waiting for you inside yourself, no matter who walks away or who comes back. You know, when someone pulls away from you, when they avoid you, distance themselves emotionally, or even physically disappear, it hits deep. It feels like a personal rejection, like you somehow weren't enough, like you missed something or did something wrong. But here's the thing that's so important to understand. Their avoidance is not really about you. It's about something much bigger inside them, a fear so intense and overwhelming that it drives them to run instead of stay. Think about what fear really feels like for someone who's avoidant. It's not just a simple passing feeling. It's a weight that sits heavy on their chest, a knot that tightens in their stomach, a storm raging inside their mind that feels impossible to calm. They don't avoid because they don't care or because they want to hurt you. They avoid because being close, being vulnerable, being exposed feels terrifying. The thought of opening up, sharing their true feelings, or risking rejection scares them so much that their instinct is to pull away, to protect themselves from what feels like certain emotional pain. This fear is like an invisible barrier, one that keeps them from connecting fully with others, even those they care about deeply. It's not about your worth or who you are. It's about the walls they've built inside themselves over time. These walls might have been constructed from past hurts, disappointments, or trauma, memories and experiences that tell them, if I get too close, I will get hurt. So instead of facing that pain, they retreat. When you take it personally, it can feel like a gut punch. You ask yourself, why didn't they fight for me? Why didn't they stay? But the truth is, the fight they need to face is internal. They are battling their own demons, their own insecurities and fears. And sometimes that battle feels impossible to win. Their avoidance is their way of coping, flawed, painful, but understandable. You might also notice that avoidant behavior isn't always consistent. One moment they're close and warm, the next they're distant and cold. This push-pull dynamic can leave you feeling confused and exhausted, constantly questioning what you did wrong. But it's not about your actions. It's about their internal struggle between wanting connection and fearing it at the same time. They want to come closer, but their fear pushes them away. Recognizing this changes everything. When you see that avoidance is a defense mechanism rooted in fear, you stop blaming yourself. You realize that the distance isn't a reflection of your value, but a sign of someone wrestling with parts of themselves they haven't healed yet. It's not a personal failure on your part. It's a signal that they need time, space, or help to face what scares them most. This understanding also opens the door for compassion, not just for them, but for yourself. It's okay to feel hurt or confused, but it's equally important to remind yourself that their avoidance doesn't define your worth. You deserve someone who can meet you fully without fear holding them back, and while you wait, you deserve kindness from yourself. So, the next time you feel that sting of someone pulling away, pause and remember, it's not about you being less than enough. It's about their own fear controlling their actions. Their avoidance is a loud, messy signal of an internal battle, and sometimes the bravest thing they can do is to come back after running. But whether or not they do, your value remains unshaken. When you carry this truth with you, you free yourself from unnecessary blame and heartbreak. You see people not just as they are in moments of distance, but as whole humans, imperfect and scared, just like you. And that perspective is powerful. It helps you hold space for others while fiercely protecting your own heart. At the end of the day, understanding this one thing, that avoidance comes from fear inside them, not from a lack of worth in you, is a step toward healing. It's a step toward peace. It's a step toward loving yourself enough to wait for what's right or walk away from what isn't, because your heart deserves nothing less than that. You have to understand that avoidance isn't a permanent state. It's a reaction to pain, confusion, or fear that feels unbearable. When someone runs, they're not necessarily choosing distance forever. They're choosing survival in that moment. But survival mode can only last for so long. Eventually, something inside starts to crack or soften. Maybe it's exhaustion from the loneliness that hiding brings. Maybe it's a realization that running hasn't made the pain go away, only made it harder to breathe. Maybe it's the slow but steady work of healing. Small steps, moments of courage, self-reflection, or even outside help like therapy. Whatever the catalyst, the avoidant person reaches a point where the weight of their fear and the cost of avoidance become unbearable. They begin to see that running from connection, from vulnerability, is not actually protecting them. It's isolating them. And isolation, no matter how safe it feels at first, turns into loneliness, sadness, or regret. This internal shift is deeply personal and often complicated. It might involve a painful confrontation with their own flaws or wounds, the kind that many people hide from. It could be a moment of clarity when they realize that the love or connection they've been avoiding is actually something they deeply want and need. Or maybe it's simply a new level of maturity, where they've grown to accept that discomfort and vulnerability are part of life, not threats to be feared. When this change happens, the avoidant person's whole perspective can start to evolve. The walls they built begin to feel less necessary. The fear that once dominated their choices loses some of its grip. And suddenly, the idea of coming back, of reaching out, apologizing, explaining, or just being present, no longer feels impossible. This process is often messy. It's not a straight line from running away to returning. There may be setbacks, confusion, mixed feelings, and moments when they question if they should stay or leave again. But the very act of coming back means they've chosen to face what scared them most. They are stepping into vulnerability, even if it's terrifying. From the perspective of someone on the receiving end, this return can feel like a miracle, a second chance, an unexpected gift. But it's important to remember that it's not a favor or a validation of your worth. It's a sign that this person is working through their own struggles and fears. They are coming back because something inside them is healing, shifting, or awakening. This understanding can change how you respond. Instead of immediately fearing rejection again, or feeling desperate for proof that they've changed, you can see their return as a moment of courage. It's an invitation to meet them with openness, but also with boundaries, to hold space for their growth while protecting your own heart. The shift inside them is a hopeful sign, but it's not a guarantee. Change takes time, and the journey from avoidance to connection is often gradual. What matters most is that they are trying, even if imperfectly. That willingness to try is the bridge that can lead to rebuilding trust and connection. At the same time, this shift inside them doesn't mean you need to stop valuing yourself. Their growth is theirs. It doesn't erase your worth or the pain you might have felt while they were gone. What it does do is remind you that people are complex, layered beings capable of change when they're ready. And sometimes, the greatest gift you can give is patience, not waiting endlessly, but patience rooted in understanding and self-respect. So when the avoidant person comes back, know this: it's not magic or luck. It's the result of an internal battle they chose to face. It's their way of saying, I'm ready to try. And whether or not that try leads to lasting connection, it's a step forward for both of you. This shift inside them is a powerful reminder that people change when they confront their fears. And your role isn't to fix or chase, but to stand firm in your own strength, open to what comes next, knowing you deserve respect, honesty, and love that's real. In that space, between their return and your response, lies the potential for something new. A connection born not out of fear or avoidance, but out of courage and hope. When someone leaves or pulls away, it's natural to feel powerless. You might find yourself checking your phone, replaying conversations in your mind, wondering what you could have said differently. You hope for a message, a sign, anything. The silence can feel like punishment, like you're stuck in a waiting room for a conversation that may never happen. But the truth is, while you can't control if or when someone decides to come back, you hold an incredible amount of power in how you choose to respond if they do. That power doesn't come from pretending you're unaffected. It comes from being deeply grounded in your own worth, from understanding that your value isn't defined by someone else's decision to leave or return. It's easy to give away your power when you're desperate for answers, for closure, for someone to explain why they hurt you. But real strength lies in knowing that closure doesn't come from them, it comes from you. When someone who once avoided connection finally reaches out, everything in you might scream for answers. You might want to demand an explanation to make sense of the pain. But before you let your emotions take over, ask yourself, who am I now compared to who I was when they left? What have I learned about myself in their absence? If you've done even a little bit of healing, you'll know you're not the same person who waited by the door. You've grown, even in the silence. You've learned how to stand on your own 2 feet. So when they come back, the ball isn't in their court, it's in yours. You get to decide whether to let them in, and if so, how far. You get to set the tone. You get to show up not as someone begging for love, but as someone who knows they are worthy of it. This is your moment to respond from a place of strength, not desperation. And that changes everything. Sometimes we fantasize about what we'll say if they ever come back. The perfect words, the powerful moment. But the most powerful thing you can do is be okay, regardless of their presence. That kind of emotional independence doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care about yourself enough to not let their return define your peace. You're not waiting to be chosen anymore. You've already chosen yourself. The way you respond can set the foundation for whatever comes next. It doesn't have to be dramatic or cold. It can be calm, kind, clear. You can listen, but also protect your heart. You can stay open while still honoring your boundaries. Because you've learned by now that love without safety isn't sustainable. You've learned that real connection requires presence, honesty, and effort, not avoidance, silence, or ghosting. There's also something incredibly powerful in showing someone who left that you didn't fall apart, that you used the space to grow, to rebuild, to reconnect with your own needs and desires. That kind of inner strength shines through. It speaks louder than any text, any conversation, any apology. It says, I'm okay, I've got me. And maybe they're coming back with new awareness, with genuine regret, ready to show up in a real way. Or maybe they're just testing the waters, still uncertain, still afraid. Either way, you get to choose. That's the beauty of being grounded in your own healing. You're no longer driven by fear of being abandoned. You're driven by clarity about what you need, what you deserve, and what you will no longer accept. So yes, you can't control their return. You can't force them to grow, to change, or to love you the way you wanted them to in the past. But you don't need to, because the most important choice isn't theirs. It's yours. How you respond says everything about who you are, how far you've come, and how much you've learned to value yourself. You are not waiting for someone to save you. You are not hoping to be rescued from heartbreak. You are standing in the aftermath, steady and whole, ready to listen, but also ready to walk away if their presence threatens your peace. That is where your real power lives, not in controlling their actions, but in mastering your own. When someone who once ran from you starts to come back, it can stir up a whirlwind of emotions. There's a part of you that remembers the pain, the silence, the confusion, and there's another part, maybe quieter, maybe still healing, that wants to believe this time it could be different, that this return means something, that maybe now they finally see your worth. But before you fall into old patterns, take a breath. Remind yourself of one powerful truth. You're not here to chase a version of someone who ran away. You're here to welcome back the person they're becoming, if they're ready to meet you where you are now. When they left, it wasn't because you lacked love or beauty or kindness. They left because they couldn't face something in themselves. Maybe it was fear of commitment, fear of being vulnerable, or fear of not being enough. So they avoided, they distanced, they disappeared. And in doing so, they showed you a version of themselves that was afraid, reactive, unready. That version may have hurt you, whether they meant to or not. It's tempting to hold on to the hope that the person you wanted them to be is who they really are, deep down. That if you just love them enough, or wait long enough, they'll come around. But love built on hope alone is fragile. And love that waits around for someone to grow at your expense, that's not love. That's sacrifice. And sacrifice is only noble when it doesn't cost you your peace. You see, if someone comes back but hasn't changed, if they're still carrying the same fears, still unsure, still hiding behind walls, then you're not reconnecting with a new version of them. You're just repeating a cycle. And cycles don't heal, they drain. The only return worth considering is one rooted in genuine growth, in accountability, in action, not just words. The person you're open to reconnecting with isn't the one who left when things got hard. It's the one who's now showing up differently, who's facing discomfort, who's willing to communicate, who's choosing presence over avoidance. If they can't do that, then what are they really offering? A placeholder, a temporary comfort, a familiar pain. You've already survived that once. You don't need to relive it. And maybe, during the time apart, you've changed too. Maybe you're no longer in the same place emotionally. Maybe your standards have risen, your boundaries have strengthened, and your self-love has deepened. That matters, because it means you're not desperate for crumbs anymore. You're waiting for someone who brings the full meal: truth, effort, consistency. You don't need to rush into their return. Take your time. Watch what they do, not just what they say. Are they showing up with intention or just dipping their toes in the water? Are they trying to rebuild trust or just trying to ease their own guilt? These are questions only time and observation can answer. And your heart, if you listen closely, will tell you the truth. So no, don't chase the version of them who left. That person wasn't ready. That person didn't know how to stay. That person hurt you because they were hurting too. Instead, hold space for the version of them who's finally willing to show up, fully, honestly, and consistently. But only if they're truly ready, and only if it aligns with the version of you that exists now. You're not the same person you were when they left. You're stronger, wiser, more self-aware. You've learned how to sit in your own silence and still feel whole. You've learned that your worth isn't measured by who stays or who leaves. It's measured by how deeply you've come to know and respect yourself. So if they're coming back, let it be on new terms. Let it be mutual. Let it be balanced. Let it feel like growth, not regression. And if they can't meet you there, if they're still the same avoidant soul, Unsure and afraid, that's okay. You don't have to chase. You're not here to fix or convince. You're here to love boldly, live honestly, and receive nothing less than what you give. You're no longer hoping for a return. You're ready for a reunion that honors who you are now. Anything less isn't a second chance. It's just another goodbye in disguise. When someone who once avoided you comes back, it can feel like a wave crashing over everything you've built in their absence. It stirs emotions, hope, doubt, relief, even resentment. And for a moment, it might seem like their return is proof that you were always worth it, that you mattered, that you were finally enough for them to stay. But let's get one thing clear. Their return is not your validation. It's not a measure of your value. It's a reflection of something that shifted inside them. You see, when someone leaves, it's easy to internalize the pain. You start believing their absence says something about you, that you were too much, too intense, too emotional, or somehow not enough. That maybe, if you'd done something differently, they would have stayed. But the truth is, they left because they weren't ready to handle the kind of connection you were offering. They weren't equipped to meet you at the depth you were already living in. They weren't capable at that time of being the kind of person your heart deserved, and that has nothing to do with your worth, nothing. So when they return, it doesn't mean now you're lovable. It means they've been on their own journey. Maybe they've faced the parts of themselves they once avoided. Maybe the silence they chose became unbearable. Maybe they've grown, healed, and finally started to understand what they ran away from. Their comeback is about their growth, not your validation. This is a critical distinction, because if you mistake their return as proof of your worth, you start giving your power away again. You start seeing them as the judge of your value, the one who decides whether you're enough to be chosen. And that mindset is dangerous. It means you're still looking outward for a sense of completeness, when in truth, you've always had everything you needed within you. You are not valuable because they came back. You are valuable because you stayed with yourself when they didn't. You kept going. You learned. You healed. You found strength in your solitude. You rebuilt. That's where your worth lives. In your resilience, in your capacity to love yourself through the hardest moments, in your refusal to let someone's absence define your identity. When they come back, it's okay to feel everything. It's okay to let the emotions rise, but don't confuse their return with a prize you finally earned. This isn't a reward. This is a moment of reckoning for them. It's about their readiness now to face what they once feared. It's about their recognition of what they lost when they walked away. It's about their courage, not your deficiency. That doesn't mean you don't matter. It means you've always mattered, whether they saw it or not. And now, if they've finally opened their eyes, it's not a moment for you to shrink or to prove anything. It's a moment to hold your ground, to ask, are you really here now? Are you showing up with intention, or are you just trying to ease your guilt? Because this time, you're different. You're not the same version of yourself who was left behind, wondering what went wrong. You've grown too. You've learned to trust your own voice, to honor your own needs. You've built boundaries that protect your peace. So now, if they return, it's not enough that they're simply back. They need to show up with clarity, with consistency, with honesty. And even then, you don't owe them a place in your life. You get to choose. You get to decide what kind of energy you want around you. You get to say no if that's what your heart needs. And if you say yes, let it be, because it aligns with your truth, not because you think their presence finally makes you whole. So let them return, if they do. Let them explain, apologize, try again. But don't let them be the mirror that tells you who you are. You already know. You're already enough. You always were. And if someone didn't see that before, it's not your burden to carry. It's theirs. Their return might be a chapter in your story, but it's not your origin. It's not your climax. It's not your happy ending. You are the author of your life, and whether they stay, go again, or try to find their way back into your heart, your worth remains unshaken, steady, rooted, and whole. When someone avoidant comes back into your life, it's natural to want to believe that things will be different, that this time their presence will make everything better, that their return alone will fix the pain they caused by leaving. But if you look closely, you'll see something deeper. They're not coming back because they want to be your hero. They're not returning to save you or rewrite the past. They're coming back because they finally see themselves more clearly. Avoidant individuals aren't emotionally distant because they don't care. Often they're overwhelmed by feelings they don't know how to process. Love, intimacy, vulnerability, those things feel like threats, not gifts, when you're afraid of being hurt or seen too deeply. So they run, they shut down, they disappear into silence, into distraction, into distance. But avoidance isn't peace. It's just temporary relief from inner chaos. And at some point, that chaos catches up. When an avoidant person starts to come back, it's often because they've been forced to confront the very emotions they tried to avoid. Maybe it was the loss of you. Maybe it was the quiet in your absence that grew so loud it couldn't be ignored. Or maybe it was something else entirely. Therapy, reflection, failure, grief. Something that broke the protective shell they used to keep the world at a safe distance. And what's revealed underneath that shell? A raw, often confused person finally beginning to realize that avoidance didn't protect them. It only prolonged their pain. They start to see that shutting people out didn't keep them from being hurt. It just kept them from being truly loved. And that realization can be powerful. It can change everything. That's why their return is less about you and more about them. They are finally beginning to see who they really are, not the version they projected to survive, but the one that's been buried under fear, shame, and self-doubt. Their return is a sign that they've stepped into a deeper level of self-awareness, not perfectly, not completely, but enough to know that avoiding love hasn't brought them peace. It's brought them emptiness. This shift is not romantic. It's not some grand gesture from a movie script. It's messy, uncertain, and often filled with awkward honesty. But it's also real. It's growth. Because the hardest thing for an avoidant person to do isn't leaving. It's returning, not physically, but emotionally, spiritually, vulnerably. And if they're doing that, if they're reaching out with open hands instead of defensive walls, it means something inside them is changing. Now here's the part that matters for you. You are not responsible for their growth, and you are not the reward at the end of their journey. You are a person with your own healing, your own path. Their return doesn't obligate you to open the door, but it is a chance to see them with clearer eyes, not as the person who left, but as someone who's trying to come back to themselves. That kind of return isn't about fixing the past. It's about rewriting the future. It's about showing up differently, more honest, more aware, more willing to stay when things get hard. It's about someone looking in the mirror and finally seeing what they couldn't face before. That's not about you being better or more lovable. It's about them becoming more them, more whole. And if they come back with real self-awareness, it may open the door for something new between you, not a recycled version of the old relationship, but something more grounded, more mutual, more human. But even if it doesn't lead to that, even if their journey back to themselves doesn't include you long-term, that doesn't mean their return wasn't meaningful. It was a turning point for them. So when someone avoidant comes back, don't rush to rescue them or romanticize the moment. Just watch, listen, stay rooted in your truth. Because what's happening is much deeper than reconciliation. It's self-reclamation. It's someone trying, maybe for the first time, to stop running from themselves. And that's a powerful thing to witness, whether you choose to walk with them or simply wish them well as they go. Either way, it's not your job to save them. They're finally trying to save themselves. When an avoidant person returns, it's easy to get caught up in the swirl of what-ifs and could-bes. There's often a quiet hope that this time will be different, that their reappearance means clarity, commitment, and maybe even a long-awaited happy ending. But here's what's crucial to remember. Their return is just the beginning of a new chapter, not the final page of a story that's already been written. What happens next isn't determined by how much they miss you. It's determined by whether they can stay consistent, emotionally present, and willing to grow. And just as importantly, it's shaped by your ability to stand by your own boundaries and not fall back into the old version of yourself that tolerated uncertainty or emotional neglect. The person who left may have realized what they lost. They may have come face to face with their own patterns and finally seen the cost of their avoidance. But realization alone isn't enough. Words are easy to say. Apologies can be whispered out of guilt, and promises can be made in moments of nostalgia or loneliness. What matters now is not what they feel, it's what they do. Because rebuilding trust isn't about sweet messages or sudden affection. It's about consistency over time. It's about showing up on the hard days, not just the good ones. It's about following through, not just reaching out. If they want to come back into your life, they have to show that they're willing to earn back the closeness they once took for granted. That takes time. That takes effort. And most of all, it takes emotional availability. The very thing they once struggled to offer. But here's where your role becomes just as important. You have to meet their return from a place of strength, not longing. If you rush in, eager to fix the past or fill the space they left behind, you risk losing yourself again. You risk slipping into an old version of you, the one who made excuses for their absence, who held on to hope while neglecting your own needs, who bent just to keep the connection alive. That person doesn't live here anymore. You've grown since they left. You've learned to honor your own boundaries. You've discovered what peace feels like, even in solitude. You've realized that loving someone doesn't mean abandoning yourself. So when they come back, this is your moment to move forward, not backward. And moving forward doesn't always mean moving on without them. It means refusing to settle for anything less than emotional truth, mutual effort, and real partnership. That might mean taking things slowly. It might mean asking hard questions and being willing to hear hard truths. It might mean saying, I care about you, but I need to know that you're really ready this time, not just for me, but for yourself. It means watching for patterns, not just promises. It means trusting your gut when something feels off instead of talking yourself out of it. The past isn't something you're trying to recreate. The love you once had, however beautiful, isn't the blueprint for what comes next. If they're really back, if they're really ready, then it has to be different. Because you're different. You're more grounded now. You know what you need. You've learned what it means to love with an open heart and firm boundaries. And if they can't meet you there, if their return is just a moment of confusion, a comfort-seeking detour, or a temporary break from their loneliness, then you'll know. Because you're not measuring love by intensity anymore. You're measuring it by how safe, consistent, and reciprocal it feels. You're no longer trying to be chosen. You're choosing yourself every single day. And anyone who re-enters your life has to be in alignment with that self-love, or they won't fit into your future. So yes, someone avoidant might come back. But the real question is, can they stay? Can they stay present? Can they stay honest? Can they stay open when fear creeps in again? Because if they can't, then their return is just another loop in a cycle you've already outgrown. You have the power to decide what this chapter looks like. You have the right to protect what you've built inside yourself, and you don't have to prove your worth to anyone who once questioned it. The truth is, you've already won, because you found peace in the space they left behind. Now, whether they stay or go again, you'll still have that peace. You'll still have you, and that's everything. Yes, maybe they've changed. Maybe they've faced the fears they once ran from. But the most powerful change of all is the one that happened in you. You've learned to listen to your intuition. You've learned to trust your boundaries. You've learned that love isn't proven through suffering. It's honored through presence, through action, through truth. If they come back, let them come back to a version of you that knows her worth. A version that doesn't beg, doesn't settle, doesn't shrink. Let them come back to someone who no longer waits to be chosen, because she's already chosen herself. And if they stay, may it be with consistency, with courage, with clarity, not because you need them to complete you, but because you both choose to meet each other in this moment, whole and willing. And if they leave again, you'll still be standing, wiser, stronger, unshaken, because your worth was never in their return. It was always in you.